Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into a book with a really big promise. It's called The Coaching Habit by Michael Bungay Stanier, and it's all about a simple solution for one of the biggest problems for managers everywhere, just being completely overwhelmed. Get this, the whole idea is you can actually work less hard, but have a much bigger impact.
So let me ask you something straight up. Are you the bottleneck on your own team? You know the feeling, right? Every single decision has to run through you, and your people just seem stuck until they get your input. It's this super frustrating cycle because the more you help, the more help they seem to need. But what if the problem isn't them? What if it's a habit you don't even know you have? Well, the book has this fantastic name for it, the advice monster. It's that voice inside your head that just pounces the second someone brings you a problem. And look, it means well. You want to help, you want to fix it, you want to add value. But this constant urge to give advice can actually end up disempowering your team and, honestly, just burning you out.
And that leads to a truth at the heart of this book that's, well, a little tough to hear. The author puts it bluntly. Your advice is not as good as you think it is. Ouch, right? But it's a critical point. We're often so fast to jump in with what we think is the solution that we never even stop to figure out what the real problem is. So, what's the actual damage of this advice monster? Well, that brings us to what the book calls the manager's dilemma, this series of vicious cycles that your good intentions accidentally create. The book lays out 3 of these cycles. First, your advice creates overdependence. Your team gets trained that you're the one with all the answers, so why bother trying to find their own? Second, that leads directly to your overwhelm. I mean, you're doing your job plus bits and pieces of everyone else's. And third, all of this causes a huge disconnection. When you're just a glorified problem fixer, the work starts to lose its meaning for everybody.
Okay, so how in the world do we break out of this? How do we stop the cycle of dependence and burnout? The book proposes a really simple but incredibly powerful shift. It's a little counterintuitive, but it's the absolute key to being a more effective and way less tired leader. And the fundamental change is just this: talk less and ask more. It sounds so simple, right? But it's a genuine shift in your mindset. Instead of being the one who provides the solution, your new job is to just stay curious a little bit longer. Guide your team to find their own brilliant answer.
There's this fantastic quote from Jonas Salk, the guy who discovered the polio vaccine, that just nails why this works so well. He said, "What people think of as the moment of discovery is really the discovery of the question." See, by asking the right questions, you're not just handing over an answer. You're setting the stage for your team to have their own aha moments. And that's way more powerful.
Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Great, another thing to do. I don't have time for long, drawn-out coaching sessions. And that is the absolute beauty of this whole approach. This is not about adding another meeting to your calendar. It's about weaving a fast, effective coaching habit into the conversations you're already having, in 10 minutes or less.
All right, so let's get really practical. The book gives you 7 essential questions, but you don't need to memorize them all right now. To get started, you really only need 3. Think of this as your starter kit for having way more impactful conversations starting today.
Your first tool is the Kickstart question. What's on your mind? This is such a great way to open any conversation because it just slices right through the boring small talk. It's an invitation for the other person to get straight to the point, to tell you what really matters to them. Next up, we have the AWE question. And what else? The author calls this the best coaching question in the world, and honestly, he might be right. Why? Because that first answer someone gives you, it's almost never the only answer, or even the best one. Asking and what else pushes for more options, which leads to better decisions. And just as important, every time you ask it, you keep your own advice monster quiet.
And finally, you finish the conversation with the learning question. What was most useful for you? This question is brilliant. It does 2 things at once. First, it makes the other person stop and reflect on what they just figured out, which makes the learning actually stick. And second, it reinforces the idea that the conversation you just had was valuable for them and for you.
So think about it this way. That first and last question, they create what the book calls the coaching bookends. You use what's on your mind to start fast and focused, and you use what was most useful for you to finish strong and clear. It's a simple, elegant little structure for pretty much any chat you have.
Okay, so having the questions is great, but how do you actually remember to use them in the moment? How do you make asking them an automatic reflex? Well, that's the final and most important step, turning this insight into an actual habit. Because knowing what to do is pretty useless if we don't, do it.
To build a real lasting habit, you need a plan. You can't just hope it happens. And the book gives you a super simple, powerful formula for it. It's called the New Habit Formula. And this is the engine that's going to turn these questions into just a normal part of how you lead.
The formula is incredibly simple. It's just 3 parts. First, you identify your trigger, that specific moment when your advice monster loves to show up. So for example, when a team member comes to me for help. Then you name your old habit, instead of immediately giving them my answer. And finally, you define the new habit. I will ask a question, like, and what are your first thoughts on this?
And hey, the impact of this is huge. It's not just some random idea. Daniel H. Pink, the author of Drive, had high praise for the book, saying that it distills coaching down to its absolute essentials, making it easier for you to support everyone you work with.
So that's the ultimate payoff. This is what it's all for. By building a habit of staying curious, you finally break out of those nasty cycles of being the bottleneck. You empower your team, you find yourself working less hard, and, amazingly, your impact actually grows.
And that really brings us to the end of this explainer. But it's just the beginning for you. The real discovery starts now. So I'll leave you with a question to kickstart your own coaching habit. Out of the 3 we covered, what's on your mind, and what else, and what was most useful, what's the one question you are going to start asking today?